Good afternoon and welcome to today's second session of the University of Surrey's Reach event, a week dedicated to exploring the many aspects of research culture. When researchers report the findings of their work, whether it be in the field of science, art, history, philosophy, or one of the many other disciplines, society as a whole benefits from their hard work. That research is influenced by the values, standards, expectations, and behaviors of the research community in which it is carried out. Collectively, these shape the research culture in which we operate. A positive research culture is crucial for creating a thriving research environment that values research integrity and innovation, as well as fosters equality, diversity, and inclusion. We started this week by exploring what research is on Monday, then moved to discuss public engagement and outreach on Tuesday. Yesterday, we focused on attainment gaps within the research community, and tomorrow we will explore the ways in which we can improve our well-being as researchers to cultivate a more happy and healthy mind. Today, we focus on career development for postgraduate and early career researchers. To thrive in a career as a professional researcher within academia or industry, we must first develop the skills that will enhance our employability. The first talk will be given by Dr. Kate Gleeson, the director of the Doctoral College and a doctor in clinical psychology, who will open the session by highlighting some of the issues researchers face during their careers in order to stimulate a discussion about how we might reframe the challenges. This will be followed by a question session called Ask the Director after her talk. In the second 45-minute session of this talk, Emma Francis and Rana Marrington will focus on the successful approaches to career management and exploring the strategies that enable researchers to take charge of their careers and address some of the challenging aspects of research culture, which impact their careers. Emma and Rana are professionally qualified careers consultants at the Doctoral College who specifically work with postgraduate researchers and early career researchers to support their career development. So firstly, welcome, Kate. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm going to share my screen now. Not that I'm going to present you with a lot of very complex slides, but because I want to present you with some, it says I cannot share the screen yet. I'm waiting. Okay, I think I probably can now. But because I want to present you with some images. So let's just see if this works. Oh, no, I've got the wrong image there. That doesn't help. Sorry. Here it is. So can you see that on your screen yet?
No, you have to wait.
Oh, sorry, it's a little delay that I'm not quite used to.
Yes, you have to redo it again.
Oh, sorry.
On the right window, okay. No problem.
Oh dear. So you can see how skillful I am with all the technology these days. There we are. Okay, can you see that now?
Yes.
Thank you. Is that you, Noelia? I can't tell who I'm speaking to now.
No, okay. It's me. Hi, Kate.
Oh, hi. All right, hi.
Sophia, you were talking to.
Oh, dear. There we are. Okay, so my name is Kate Gleeson. I'm the director of the Doctoral College. And what I'm going to do now is just share a few ideas with you around this theme of reaching in and reaching out. So this is about reaching in within ourselves, if you like, and reaching out to others in order to enable us to thrive in our careers. And I'm thinking today very much from the perspective of somebody early in their research career. So I don't know who's in the audience today, but I'm anticipating there will be a range of people, but including postgraduate researchers and people at the early stages of their career, research careers. And so those are the people I'm thinking of most strongly when I'm thinking about what it means at the moment, what the research culture means to us at the moment. Because I think when I began my sort of journey, if you like, towards an academic career, it was the most exciting time in my life. And I think the start of our careers probably should be the most exciting times in life. And I think for many people, this is true. But of course, there is always a lot of uncertainty. You know, we have a way forward, but the path is never really laid out very clearly. And we might know something about the kind of career we want to have. We might know something about the rough shape of it, but the content and the detail, you know, isn't very clear from the beginning. Our ultimate career might not even have been invented at the point where we first set out on this road. So, but for me, when I started out in my research career, that beginning, that uncertainty was actually quite exciting. It felt like it was packed with opportunities. And I think the stories we tell, the images we have in our minds about the beginnings of things, the beginnings of stories, the starts of career, they often focus on that idea of youth, people at the start of their lives. So the images of the young postgraduate researcher, or the image of the young early career researcher, is often firmly in our mind. And along with that go things like perhaps low pay, the idea of not having very much security, pensions are a long way off, worrying about starting and supporting families are a long way off. And we're filled with this passion and this ambition, and we probably tolerate less than perfect working conditions. The people around us as well probably don't give a huge amount of attention to that. They think, oh, well, I managed okay in my day, or won't hurt if you live on beans on toast for a few months. And these stereotypes and these metaphors hang around us. So we have this sense of people, on this vocational path, fired with ideas, enthusiasm, ambition, doing the thing that matters most to them. And the conditions may be less than perfect. But of course, many people taking on PhDs are doing it from a very different position and from a very different perspective. And people stepping in to take on research careers as postdocs or whatever may already have had a whole career before they got to this point. They may already be parents. They may already have a mortgage. They might also have lots of savings, but they might also be carrying with them a huge debt from, doing a PhD or, from their undergraduate years. But they can be at any age. And yet the stories or the images of what it means to be starting out are very different. And I wonder, how much more difficult it might be to cope with some of the uncertainty, depending on what our path has been so far and what our expectations are. So I wonder if the beginning of my early career, it might be very different from the beginnings for some other people. And then we have COVID-19, which brings with it a whole new set of uncertainties. And these uncertainties, we can see them as opportunities, and it's quite exciting too. We now have to conduct our research in different ways. We have to adapt, we have to redesign, but we also have delays getting ethics and delays getting access to things. And financial resources are tight. So even if you are sort of young and perhaps can rely on the bank of mum and dad a little bit, maybe their finances aren't as secure as they once were. And, money is tighter in universities, and the job market suddenly seems a little uncertain, a little less predictable. Added to that, we have this constant clamour in the media, these many channels open to us now, and that constant hum of anxiety with hundreds of tiny extra questions to ask ourselves, or little risk analyses to take just to go outside and get something for lunch. So this buzz is there. And I'm wondering, I don't know if this is ringing any bells for you, but I'm wondering right now if people are sitting there thinking, well, how can I keep going with this ambitious research goal? How can I decide what to do next when there's so much uncertainty around about so many different things? How do I just move forward? How do I have a good day at work now? How do I know how to create a satisfying experience at work? And so I was thinking, when I was asked to sort of talk about research culture here, I was thinking that probably sitting in this room were a bunch of people with really excellent ideas about how we can get through this, not just to survive, but to thrive and to actually enjoy it. I feel these early stages in our careers are so important that I want to find ways so that the joy and the excitement can bubble up and come into it, rather than sort of sit there waiting for this to be over, hanging on for the vaccine and imagining that after Christmas, things might start to get better. I'm thinking about how we can have a good day at work and get the most out of what we're doing right now. So these are some of the thoughts I've been having around that, and just to share with you, this is the beginning of a journey where we have this glowing yellow brick road of possibilities, and then the reality hits in, and that's great. Something else happened here. I'm going out of my PowerPoint display into something else here. Hang on. And I've been thinking about this. So for me, human beings are very complex creatures, but when we come under threat, we can be very, very simple. And I think that constantly scanning for threats to defend against and looking for rewards to discover, at the moment, I think we're much more like, it's almost as if I feel I have my switch into this defensive automatic system half open all the time. And I know that if I switch into this kind of defensive way of thinking, I know that I'm going to use shortcuts. I know there are going to be blind spots. I'm going to be trying to confirm things, I believe, looking for evidence to support what I'm thinking. And I know I'll make poor choices. If I can stay in this more reflective discovery mode, it's tiring for me. It takes a lot of energy to stay in that mode, but I can deal with more unfamiliar ideas. I can deal with complex abstract ideas better. So I've been thinking about how do I help myself to stay in that sort of more reflective mode, that slower, you could say more rational, but more deeper thinking kind of mode, and help myself not to switch into that defensive mode, which is distracting me and perhaps taking away a lot of the energy, if you like, from my work. And I've found there are lots of very simple things that I can do. And I've been looking around me to see how other people are doing it too. And I'm finding one of the things I notice is that people are deliberately using humour, for example, to try and help themselves stay in that discovery mode, trying to make what they're doing, even if it could be in quite a serious place, in a research meeting or whatever, trying to use humour to keep ourselves in that sort of playful approach, so that we sort of stay with a kind of more, I don't know, creative way of approaching things, rather than stay in this kind of like sort of sense of sort of narrowing things down and staying very focused and trying to sort of bat off potential challenge, if you like, to the work that we're doing. The other thing I've been doing is trying to think about setting goals for myself that are more intrinsically rewarding. So looking for approach goals that sort of pull me into this more sort of rational, conscious thinking and away from the more defensive thinking. And even when that's a task that's given to me by somebody else, so if my boss asks me to work on something, I try to think about a way to reframe it. So it might be a task I have to do anyway, if you like, but I try to reframe it so it fits with something that I care about, something I want to work towards, something I want to approach. So it's sort of like reframing things to make them fit against my own intrinsic goals. And even just trying to keep that awareness going of how I'm likely to slip into this more defensive approach and away from the more creative approach helps me to stay with the way of thinking and stay more in a sort of state of flow rather than tripping into this more cautious, careful, more defensive and tense sort of way of thinking. So that's one thing I've been thinking about. Another thing I've been thinking about is this idea of reframing. So I find I can stop myself enjoying things I really enjoy very, very easily. So today's task, I was asked to say a few words to sort of get everyone talking about how to keep going, if you like. And normally I find that sort of thing very interesting. As I said, I spent a lot of time these days thinking about how I can have a good day at work. And yet I look at my diary and I think, well, I've got an hour and I've got to sit here now and I've got to think about how to do this. And, it's a task I must get done and I must do it right. And, very interesting exercise. But I sort of almost take the joy out of it by thinking, well, it's got to be really perfect. And I've got to think about impressing you all and making the ideas that I bring in here sound like really important ideas. And I turn it into a chore rather than thinking, well, okay, if I allow myself to appear human and maybe a little bit vulnerable and show you my working out, show you the way I'm thinking, rather than come up with this nice polished, sort of, I don't know, I want to say manifesto, but I've used that word in other contexts, but, this sort of idea about how we should be behaving. And then realise, actually, if I do allow myself to be a little bit vulnerable and to show you my thinking and show you how I'm working these things out, you might actually empathise with that. It might help you to engage with what I'm saying and showing you the working out in a way, rather than waiting for something to be perfectly formed before sharing it, and making myself vulnerable to you is actually one of the things that helps us to bond together, to sort of feel a connection between each other. And, that can be a very important thing in helping a team working. So I think a combination of sort of reaching in and reflecting and thinking, being aware of what's going on within us, if you like, and how we're responding to the situation, and then reaching out to let others in and let them help us and share our thoughts and ideas and our early drafts of papers or our newly formed ideas. Letting ourselves feel vulnerable in that way can actually help to strengthen what we're doing. That image there on the screen, for me, it's an image I've often scribbled on a piece of paper when talking to postgraduate researchers that I've supervised. And often I use it to describe doing something that's really quite simple. You know, if you put a plank of wood on the floor and ask someone to walk along the plank of wood, you wouldn't give it a second thought, you just walk along the plank of wood. And many of the things that we're trying to do today, they're actually far more interesting than walking along a plank of wood. But because of the potential risk of getting it wrong, we imagine this plank of wood being up above two very tall buildings. So the consequence of falling seems enormous. And then we stick a fire on one of these buildings. So, you know, that makes the pressure, you know, the time pressure of getting it done and getting it right and making it perfect even stronger. And yet the building's an illusion and the fire's an illusion, because the task we're doing, like sitting down to pull some ideas together to talk to you today, is actually the same task. It's walking along a plank of wood. It's not a difficult task. So that brings me to the idea of trying perhaps to work a little softer rather than working harder, and you know, allowing ourselves to perhaps, you know, slow down and try to accomplish a little less. You know, I find that having a massive complicated to-do list at the moment just reminds me of all the tasks that I still have open. There's not really much point in having this great long list of things to feel guilty about not having done, sitting here beside me as I work. I think for me now, I'm trying to have fewer things on that list, but making sure that the thing I'm focusing on and working on is the most important thing for me to be working on at the moment. But allowing myself still to take time to sharpen my tools, to focus on developing myself as a person, allowing myself to refresh, so that I can try to keep myself in that more reflective and deliberate system for more of the time. I think that in the end has allowed me to be more productive, rather than just keep focusing on the time and moving forward and getting to the end of the task, really, rather than enjoying working through the task and allowing myself to do that more slowly. Maybe I'd take fewer things off my list, but I'm not sure I'm less productive. So, and I think there will always be far too many things on the list. So trying to focus on the most important one could perhaps be the right way forward. And thinking about it more from the perspective of the system around me and the group of people I'm working for, rather than just thinking about the goals from my own perspective and the things that I as an individual are trying to achieve. So this slide for me captures the image of the I versus we. This is the biggest idea for me at the moment, because it's all about metaphors and stories, really, isn't it? But the stories that we tell ourselves, they are our experience, the thoughts that we have in our heads. They flavour the way, you know, the metaphors within our heads, flavour the way we experience ourselves. So I could use a metaphor. I could talk about myself as a research machine pounding out papers. And many of our sort of the stories that we have about researchers and innovators tend to be stories of that kind. They're about individuals rising above and shining above all the others. They focus very much on what one person can achieve, when really we know that it's very rare for anyone to succeed alone, and that all of our ideas are built on the work of others, the training that we get from others, the support of the supervisors we might have had, the support of the colleagues who've given us advice. None of this is coming out of a single brain. And yet we hang on to this very old-fashioned way of thinking. And at the moment, more than ever, I think that thinking isn't helpful. I think now is the time to let go of it. And if we did do that, I think about what that would mean. You know, if we were trying to build each other up and investing in the team, not just thinking about how we are rising or how we are shining, if you like, in this situation, but working together to do the best work we can, and to help each other's work become visible and excellent. I think that will change a lot of things. I think it would, I came up with 3 things it might immediately change for me. One might be, it might change the way I give feedback to others. So when I'm thinking about commenting on other people's work, and as I've got older, I've become better at doing this, I will be thinking about how to improve it rather than trying to make myself feel clever, which I think, without realizing what we're doing, we often do that. Feedback is a way of showing that we're right above others, rather than a way of building on and appreciating the qualities in someone's work and helping them to find the next step forward. I think it would help me to remember to take responsibilities for the people around me. You know, at the moment, you know, things can feel very pressured, and it's very easy to focus on surviving in your little bubble. But I think, particularly as we often work remotely from each other now, I think it's important to look around us and to check the other people in the lifeboat, if you like, to see that they're warm and dry, and just to think about who we're in touch with and not in touch with, and be aware of others. I think that sort of, if you start to think about whether your team is thriving and whether your research group or your research tribe, however you understand them, how well they're doing, I think just that simple step of doing that, opening your mind up to doing that, helps you to feel better and safer. And, sort of, I don't know, there's something comforting in that. Even if you don't need any direct help from anybody else, it's just being part of a group that does that, I think, helps us to feel that we can thrive. I think it changes our behaviours when we go into meetings. I don't think anyone goes into a meeting wanting to sow discord or create dissatisfaction, but I think we can do that very easily if what we're doing is focusing on getting what we want from that meeting, and rather than focusing on how to sort of build the cohesion in that group, or celebrate and appreciate the other people in that group. So I think even small things, just by setting your intention in a slightly different way, and focusing on the making the team thrive, so that this, we lift everybody in the team up, so that, we draw attention to the excellence of our work by bringing up the excellence of other people. I think that can be a very powerful thing, and perhaps needed more now than ever. Now, you could say, it's easy for me to see that at this stage of my career, being a sort of probably one of the oldest people in this room at the moment. And also you might think that at the start of your career, you can be, you can feel very small and very unable to have influence in those kinds of situations. But I would say you can have a really, really powerful influence, and you can determine and set the tone of the research culture around you, even with very, very small things, like even by the way your body language, shows how you're reacting to somebody's behaviour. A little micro appreciation of somebody in a team meeting, a question, that can allow someone to shift into reflecting on their behaviour and switching into a more curious attitude rather than, staying in a more defensive mode, I think can be incredibly powerful. Keeping your team together and helping others to feel well, it might sound like a cliche, but it is the way to create the most powerful and most effective research environment, I think. And again, another little cliche, but it made me laugh when I saw this written the other day, but it said, just by switching the I into we can shift from illness to wellness. And I know that's silly, but it suddenly struck a chord with me that there is something now about letting go of these old-fashioned ideas about the focus on the individual and striving to get ahead, because bringing others along with us and lifting each other up, I think actually lifts us up, lifts us too. It can do us no harm. So those are just a few of the ideas that I've had when I've been thinking about, how we can thrive now.